Well, happy Friday, kickoff to Memorial Day weekend. My name is Robert Schein, Managing Director and Partner with Blanke Schein Wealth Management. Again, today is Friday, May 22nd, 2020, and this is a special edition of our Friday Insights. I first want to put a shout out to one of our clients who actually flew planes in World War II. And Blaine, this one's for you and all the other servicemen and women around the world, past, present, and future. Our heart goes out to you and your families, and thank you for all you've done and the sacrifices you guys continue to make. So let's talk about Friday Insights from Blanke Schein Wealth Management. You know, as we've been committed to providing daily updates to our clients and friends and family, we've received tremendous quality feedback, and we're truly grateful and appreciate that. And we ask that please keep it coming. One of our clients yesterday emailed us and said, hey, what is from your perspective, the game plan? What's the game plan, both short and long term? And our investment committee here, Blanke Schein Wealth Management, we spent a lot of time, effort, energy collectively sort of sourcing everything out there on a daily 24-hour news cycle basis. And that boils down to our short and long-term game plan that I'm excited to share with you, sort of the view from the observation deck, something that we're looking at from a 30, 60, and 90-day playbook as it matters to markets and portfolios. So let's get right into it and look into sort of the view from the observation deck and our playbook. So we've talked about the view from the observation deck, and what I've thrown up on the board for us is to discuss today 10 things that we're not limited to, but actually that we believe are critically important, both in the short and long term. 4 of them right now: U.S. policy, both fiscal and monetary policy, fundamentals, technical analysis, and sentiment. Those are the 4 that we call them the 4 horsemen, especially in our industry. It doesn't matter if it's a bull market, a bear market, a recession, a depression. Those 4 are your 4 horsemen that we constantly monitor, good times and bad. They tell us a lot more than what we need, but they're critical as it relates to everything. Let me give you an example. I've been talking a lot about fiscal and monetary policy. So, fiscal is Congress. They set the rules. They set taxation, right? If they raise taxes or lower taxes, that has a positive or negative impact both on small business owners and consumers at home. That can also net effect to portfolios. So that is important to stay on top of. Monetary policy, the Federal Reserve, as we talked about several times here, right? They also control what we like to call, in short, the velocity of money by raising and lowering interest rates, right? So they can lower interest rates and flood the economy with stimulus, as well as checks in everyone's mailbox. So they're flooding the marketplace, and they're also making the cost of money real low. Bank deposits are not paying us anything on those, right? Or at least banks aren't. But they control, sort of the Federal Reserve controls what we call the velocity of money. Much like if they want to slow the market down for some reason, stay ahead of inflation versus supporting unemployment or employment itself, they can raise interest rates depending upon where we are in the economic cycle. So those are critical, right? Those are a critical component to what we keep an eye on. And I can constantly report that, fiscal and monetary policy work together in this market like we've never seen before. And I firmly believe, we're in a very different place in a positive way in the last 30, 60 days as a result of that. So that's a huge, big plus right here. Fundamentals are out the door, right? Out the window, right? We don't know what a corporation's going to earn because we're not open. The CEO doesn't have sort of guidance that they could provide to Wall Street as it relates to future earnings. So, that one's sort of, we'll put that to the side, but it's still important to watch. Technical analysis, right? Trading ranges for, let's call the S&P 500, as I discussed before. That's very important. And then sentiment, right? 30 and 60 days ago, the sentiment in the market, so the bearish feeling was so palatable. It was, like in the Great Depression. It really was, because we were all in a state of fear, if you will, because it wasn't just a market fear, it was a behavioral science, right? We were fearful for our medical well-being of our family. So that was a very different place. So that also worked its way into the market, as you clearly saw. But as we get closer in the next 30 days and 60 days and 90 days to potentially some medical treatments and vaccines, who knows? But we're going to monitor that because that relates to everything. Liquidity and yields. So yields on 10-year treasury is very important because it sort of indicates the health of the economy and any future growth in the economy. but we also know that monetary policy is also helping provide these. We also look at the VIX, which is sort of the volatility index. You know, when markets are really bearish, that volatility index spikes super high. But what we've seen since the height and since March of the volatility index, it's steadily on a decline, if you will, which is a positive thing. Now, it's sort of just hanging out in a range right now. It hasn't dropped any lower. If it drops lower, that's a positive sign going forward for portfolios. If it goes higher, then it's going to indicate that we're going to have more volatility and stay more in a trading range. But right now, VIX is in a range just like the S&P 500, but we're going to keep an eye on that. High frequency data, that's something that I talk about just about every other daily update. And ultimately, that's real-time data that we get from sort of an economy standpoint as to, you know, are people going to TSA every day? And actually, from yesterday to today, TSA reported an additional 88,000 day over day. We're not comparing year over year because that's obviously down 88% from year over year travel. So that's not an accurate comp set, right? But daily incremental data, right? So from 2 days ago to yesterday, day over day, 88,000 more people showed up in airports to fly on airplanes in TSA, and that was more than expected. So it's called high frequency data. So we're going to find out how many people are going to be driving this weekend because it's Memorial Day weekend. So we will get that gasoline sort of index and that report, very specific and very real time, and that helps us follow the trajectory of, you know, what this is going to look like in the next short term and near future of the reopening of the economy in the United States here. So that's very important. I talk about high frequency data on many, many levels. So that's what we're watching on a daily basis. So out of the 9 other sort of things that we're thinking about that we put up in our daily playbook, both short and long term, the number one key factor here to all of this reopening are going to be our schools, right? It's not going to be the restaurants. It's not going to be the retail stores. I think they'll find their way through this, and some will live to see another day, and some, I'm sorry, it's the end of the road for that business, and that's tragic. But ultimately, if you look at the U.S. economy in total and look at all the households in America, over 40% have a dependent son or daughter at home, and sometimes multiple. So in order for mom and dad to go back to work in the workforce, they have to have a safe place for their child to go back, whether it's daycare, quality daycare, or whether it's even the school system, you know, grade school and high school and even colleges. Now we've seen colleges, you know, go different ways. California shut down for the indefinite future, you know, I think all of next year. So California colleges have just said, no, we're not coming back. And you see other, you know, maybe thoughtful approaches that are different in colleges like Notre Dame and Purdue and even University of Arizona. Go Wildcats. That have said, you know what, let's do this a little bit thoughtful. We have the luxury of controlling our scheduling. So they're going to do it a different way. And we don't know which approach is the best way. But I really believe the key to opening up the U.S. economy is for a parent to have sort of the peace of mind to know that their son or daughter is going to be in a quality environment that's going to be safe in the fall. And if we can't provide that, and right now, that's a day-to-day changing event, right? But if we can't provide that in the United States on a go-forward basis as we get returned to sort of reopening America, I really think that's where the economy is going to sort of continue to be challenged. And so that's something that I think about on a daily basis. We will know more, even 60 and 90 days down the road, because that will play out. But that ultimately, for me, is the number one key that I'm going to be watching as it relates to all the other supporting factors that we keep tabs on. My last topic of the day, the true technological revolution, right? Technology has been a big part of our lives, but we're seeing it now, obviously, in everything that we do, from communications to food, retail, and everything else. But I think long term, this has been an ultimate game changer. And let me give an example of why. There's a news story that basically was reported 30 days ago, okay? And there was a medical technology company that was out there. And they basically said, listen, there's a big short supply of ventilators in the United States, right? That was on every hour on the hour, like, everyone's like stressed because we don't have enough ventilators. And it was a true issue in the United States. And the projections we were getting at that time were, it's the end of the world. We will never actually get enough ventilators because what we have in stock and what we can get and source around the world, it was a short supply. Well, 30 days later, right, this medical technology company basically said, we have the blueprint for ventilators. And what they did was they shared it. They shared their proprietary information. It's like their blueprint. An architect says, I've got something, let me share it. And actually that's what they did. They open sourced this blueprint, right? So we have people around the world. This is a true story. There's over 250 downloads of this blueprint that was proprietary to this company that said, you know what, let's help everyone around the world. So you got people using 3D printers, printing ventilators and parts and putting them together. You also had the ventilator company that shared this. Another chip maker out there in the United States saw it and said, hey, wait a minute, the ventilator that you have, we can improve it. Let's partner with you to do that. You know what they did? They basically figured out the ventilator that they had, the doctor or the nurse had to go inside the hospital room to change the mechanism and the monitoring and sort of the programming of it for that patient that was inside, meaning more exposure. They actually came up and partnered with them. They said, hey, what if we gave you remote capability, meaning you could look through the window, but you specifically, doctor or nurse, didn't have to go in and change the settings on the ventilator, but you could still monitor through the window. And that's what they did. In 30 days, they not only created this and shared this with the world, but now we have new and improved ventilators that I don't know why anyone's not talking about this story, right? In 30 days, we've changed the world, like for the better. And little things like that are happening in big ways all around the world, right? I've talked about this in terms of the medical technology and the medical community have come together in such a great fashion, right? We've short-footed and there's some missteps along the way, and that's been tragic because we've lost some lives and policy, we didn't handle it the right way. That all aside, let's talk about sort of the short and long-term magnifying effects on a global scale for every different aspect of our medical our medical community. So our hearts and our thoughts are out there, and thank you for all that you've done, because you guys are, obviously part of this Memorial Day weekend celebration, because you're on the front lines of this. But ultimately, I think it's something to be positive about, because the technological revolution and the breakthroughs that are happening, the collaboration both here in the United States and around the world are going to save. It's a multiplier effect. I truly believe the lives that we lost today won't be in vain. I think they're going to save tens of millions of lives as a result of this, because the future innovation and collaboration. So have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Stay healthy, stay safe, and thank you for staying with us.